Hello, runners. Welcome to another thrilling episode of Mr. Rubio Used to Run, the Running Warehouse podcast. Which number are we on now?
This is number 10, Joe.
Number 10. Wow. And here we are, your Marvel superheroes, Connor Blaylock and Joe Rubio. Talk about some running stuff today. Yeah.
A lot of exciting stuff today. I mean, we've both been traveling quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I know there's just a lot going on in the industry. What do we have to start off today?
Well, you recently went to Flagstaff, Arizona, the
Yes.
American home of distance running at the moment. Yeah.
Right.
Who'd you visit?
I mean, we visited the whole Noslete team, saw a lot of excitement leading into the Olympic trials. And, you know, by the time this podcast airs, we will know who is going to represent the team. But it was exciting to see the process going into the trials, how much miles, how much effort's gone into it, and it was fun to just be a fly on the wall.
Right. Check it out. I'm actually going to the Olympic trials here. I think I'm leaving tomorrow. Yeah, I better figure out when I'm leaving, but I'm leaving tomorrow. So going to Orlando and then going from there to New York City for the Melrose Games.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun too. But who you got for the marathon trials? Top 3 men, top 3 women.
That's a tough question because I think when you look at the full field, after 10, maybe after the top 15, none of those people are really going to be a factor. But when we look at the top 10 athletes, it could go any direction.
It's really close.
We did find out that Jared Ward did have to pull out today, obviously a Running Warehouse favorite, but he's been having some struggles the past year or so. So was he going to be a contender? Hard to know.
Right.
But I think for me, probably Mance is my number one. I mean, he's so strong right now in his workouts, in his past few races. I mean, he's the guy everyone's looking at right now. Number 2, you know, this might be a little tough to say, but I think Galen Rupp, just because of the experience.
Yep.
I know he hasn't proven himself in the last year or two. He hasn't done anything crazy special, but he knows how to execute on race day. He's got the experience, and you know, you can't ever count that guy out. And then number 3, I'm kind of going back and forth because I think Clayton is looking strong. He's been training a lot with Mance, so I want to say maybe him, but then I keep going back and forth. I think maybe CJ Albertson as like that dark horse, just because he knows how to take it off hard. He knows how to shake things up in the race. I think he's a strong runner. Does he have it? I don't know. I think the safer bet is Clayton, but I'm going to go with CJ.
That's exactly my top 3.
Really? Wow.
We didn't even discuss this beforehand.
Great minds think alike.
Well, I was going between CJ and Chalimo.
Oh, Chalimo.
Yeah.
And you can't forget because he just came in as
right.
that.
And I read a quote from Scott Simmons, his coach, who's a friend of mine, and he says he's going after 208.
Yeah.
One of 2 things is going to happen. He's either going to hit 208 and make the team, or he's going to blow up. But the guy can race.
Yes.
Yeah.
And has he ran a half marathon yet? Or
no, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's proven himself in 5K.
5K. I mean, he's got an Olympic medal from the 5K.
I mean,
that has recently shown to translate into really good marathons.
And I think what's going to scare the other athletes is they have no idea what he's capable of.
Well, I think they know what he's capable of.
Yes.
Can he actually pull it off? I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah. And then on the women's side, I'm going with Emily Sisson, Keira D'Amato, and Betsy Sena.
Yeah. I'm as much as it's tough on the men's side, for me, it's even tougher on the women's side because, you know, a little bias just going and working out and training with NAZ. Kellen, Alafine, and Lauren, all 3 of them look so strong. So I think any one of them has the potential to make the team. But then, you're right. Like Sisson, Betsy, like just there's so much talent that I don't even know if I can pick a top 3 on the women's side.
Yeah. Sentimental favorite of mine is Sarah Hall, just because a good friend of mine coached her in high school. Yes. So,
and wow, how crazy.
It's like 8, she's made 8 Olympic trials. I mean, in everything, 1500 steeplechase.
Yes.
Yeah. I think every event in track and field she's made it in.
A true veteran on the women's side. And then I think with that topic in mind, we got to go back to the men's side and talk about Black Cactus.
Yeah, he's in there for what?
What is this, his 10th Olympic? I don't know.
Abdi Rahman has just been around forever.
Yes.
Yeah, since the New Testament or something. But, you know, the guy is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So, The other thing I'm going to is Milrose, which should be a fantastic meet. The big thing is our friend Josh Kerr going after the world record in the 2 mile.
Yes.
And there's a slouch in the field called Grant Fisher.
Yes.
So that should be a really good matchup. Looking forward to that.
Yeah. I mean, Grant is, he's one of my favorites. We, at the World Championships this year, I sat next to his dad, and, the amount of talent he has, the amount of work he puts in, I think he's probably capable of breaking several more American records and maybe some world records. We don't know.
Yeah, and now he's back with his high school coach.
Right. Should be a good thing.
Yeah, he's a little bit more personalized training.
Yeah.
And I think it's in Park City.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, should be fun. So let's start today's Enlightening podcast by reviewing some data I got at a symposium put on by Brooks, and this was pre-COVID. I don't think these numbers have changed that much. But they spent quite a bit of time in run specialty stores around the United States, I think primarily in Seattle, but just interviewing people and getting an idea of what the marketplace looked like.
Yeah.
So, and this is, like I said, it's estimates, but according to Brooks at this symposium, 10% of the people who purchase running shoes understand the technology and buy based in large part on the technology. So these are probably a lot of people who are listening to this podcast that understand all the stacks and the foams and the plates and understand what goes into a $275 pair of racing shoes.
And they correct us anytime we make a mistake.
Yes, exactly. And same thing with running shoes in general.
Yeah.
So that's 10% of the population. 15% of the population does not understand the technology and buys based on that misunderstanding. And the example they used was a gentleman that came out of a running shoe store, and they asked him why he bought the running shoes. And he says, because they're stable. They said, how do you know it's stable? And he squeezed the heel counter and said, because it's got a firm heel counter. Now, that's an aspect of it, but it's not entirely everything. But that was the reason he bought the shoes, is because of the heel counter.
Right.
So it's kind of like, what you call it, conspiracy theorist, right? It's just kind of, you get an idea in your head and you go with it, and it might be right or might be wrong, but you're going in the direction you think is right.
Right.
There's 25% of people who buy it based on expert opinions. So these are going to be people that talk to their coach or talk to a friend who they consider an expert. It could even be themselves. They just like Brooks shoes, and so they do that. And then there's also the world famous Running Shoe Geeks message board. Most of the questions are people asking other Running Shoe Geeks, how does this fit?
Yep.
What's the mileage?
Yes.
All these types of things. So they're not necessarily doing the research themselves, but they are asking the podiatrist, whoever, for their expert advice and going in large part on that. So that comes out to 50% of the people.
Yeah.
The other 50% of the people buy it based entirely on the looks of the shoe, which people listening to this podcast are going, nobody does that. And I walk around this building and nearly everyone buys their shoes based on the looks of the shoes.
Yes.
The other interesting fact that was brought up is that less than 50% of the people that buy running shoes will actually use them for running. Most will use them for walking or standing or leisure activities.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you're going to do with that information. I just find it interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is really interesting. And from my days in working retail, it does kind of all seem to align. I will say, when we look at those numbers might be different from our consumers versus maybe a brick and mortar store. And even within brands, like, I think specifically what comes to mind is On and Hoka.
Yeah.
I'd imagine those numbers maybe shift a little bit more towards, maybe
the looks of the shoes and,
yes.
and expert, people suggesting it.
Yeah.
Because that's what, when I'm in retail,
yes.
A lot of people that come in are buying Hokas because their friend told them to get Hokas. That's basically it.
I mean, every one of my non-runner friends, family friends, they always are asking about the Hoka through recommendation, which is great, but, just shows kind of the differences.
Yeah, there's quite a bit different. Let's talk about some trends in the industry.
Okay.
There's some positive trends and some negative trends. The positive trends are, I've seen weights drop considerably in everything. And high stack racing shoes are coming in at 6.5 ounces or lighter. And this is stuff we're seeing for 2025. It's, it's the same, Adi Zeros, but it's not the Evo at $500. It's going to be the other models at like $275 are going to come in close to 6 ounces. Nike's that way. Asics will have models that way. Saucony, which is really cool.
Yeah.
The other thing is on just regular super shoes, stacks continue to climb, and stability is improving. So that means runs are easier, runs are faster,
Yep.
which isn't a bad thing. That's a good thing.
And I think both of those, a lot of that comes down to the foams. I mean, we talk about it, but every year the foams get bouncier, they get lighter, and it's helping shoes get higher without increasing weight. And when you have two shoes, you look at a modern day shoe right now, maybe like a Rebel, and you compare it to a shoe a few years ago. If you can get the same experience, but a shoe's 2 ounces lighter and maybe even bouncier, why would you want the old shoe?
For sure. I mean, the cool thing is we're starting to see some really good foams
Yes.
and lighter weight at affordable packages.
Yes.
So I'll bring up the Rebel
Yeah.
V4 and the new Hoka Mach 6. Both have fantastic foams. Both are $140. A great value.
And not only do these shoes feel good, but a lot of the brands are taking notice, and it's causing everyone to step up their game. Creates better price points across the board, creates better performance. It's making everyone see that you can create these shoes at a $140 price point. So, I think it's a good thing for the industry as a whole.
Yeah. One thing that's kind of funky is when the companies come out with new foams and make advancements in their footwear and still charge $250, $275, that's in my mind justified. But when you're talking a company that has a foam that's 6 or 8 years old and still trying to charge $250, $275, I mean, that's ludicrous, right? I mean, it should be able to scale down the price on that thing.
I mean, we see this, with certain brands, especially over the last year, showing us a shoe that will be coming out at a certain price point. And they say, well, Nike has that price point. Well, Adidas has that price point. We'll say, well, one, you're not that brand.
Yeah.
And two, what's your innovation that's going to make someone pick your shoe over the current market leaders? And they don't have an answer. And I think that's going to make, you either lower your price point to make it, something that the consumer wants, or you provide an innovation that is going to give a distinct advantage to the consumer. Because I think we've seen with the Evo that if you provide a solution that is going to give visible results, people will pay any price.
Yeah. $500 is a little extraordinary, but
it is. But people are buying it. That's the crazy thing.
Exactly. So on to some more of the negative things that are going on just in the sporting footwear industry in general. Is I was reading the Wall Street Journal that retro sneakers, the old school ones, are leading the athletic shoe industry. Now the problem with that is they tend to be less expensive. It's not in all cases, but they are. But the number one shoe for Adidas is the Samba. It's an indoor soccer shoe from the 50s or 60s, right? Right. People are buying that. And what that tells me is there's just a lack of innovation in the industry. And we just have this, reactive committees. You have a group of people that everyone's making the same shoe. So everyone's going after Hoka, tall stacks and everything. And you get to a point like we are now where it's just a copycat industry. And people are risk averse. So the last real big, huge innovation was Nike went in 2016 when they came out with the 4%. Since then, everyone's kind of there's no reason for people to open up their checkbook unless it's really, really forward thinking.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like we've seen that a little bit in the movie industry recently. Everyone's got to do their remakes. We see it in even in cars. They got to bring back the old retro remake of things. And I think part of it is the nostalgia and people, that name recognition, but I think a little bit of it is just laziness.
Yeah.
They know something worked in the past, so let's bring it back rather than looking towards the future.
Right. And that's, kind of like Tesla right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't really innovated it in a while.
Oh, Joe, the Cybertruck. Come on.
The Cybertruck, yeah. It's, years behind like Ford and GMC and all that stuff. But what are they doing? They're lowering the price.
Yes.
And that's what happens. You lower the price. Now, the problem with that is people get used to paying lower prices for products. And then when you try to bring these new products out that aren't really advancing anything and try to charge a higher price, people are going to be hesitant to do it. And that's what we're seeing.
Yes.
Right? People are wanting closeout shoes. We had with the pandemic, people put stuff on sale. People get used to paying for stuff on sale. And you try to bring out these other shoes that aren't really innovative at $160, $180. Yeah. And it's a tough sell.
Right.
Yeah. So, as far as innovation goes, we keep bringing up Jean-Luc, but, he's super innovative. But the thing is, he did not come from the running industry.
Right.
He was a professional skier, right? He was really big behind the parabolic ski. So his view of the running shoe industry is, why can't we do this?
Yeah.
And everyone in the industry, these reactive committees go, well, we can't do that. And he goes, why? And so I look at tennis shoes and I go, why can't you guys do this? They go, well, no one ever does it. I go, well, why can't you put a super foam inside a tennis shoe and put it inside of a cassette and make it lighter and more responsive and softer?
Yep.
Who would want that? Well, you can't do that. Well, why? It's just stuff like that, right?
Right.
You need somebody that comes from outside the industry to really shake things up.
Right.
And
tennis is a very traditional.
Oh man, it's brutal.
Yeah.
So back 1,000 years ago, Matt Donnelly was in charge of track and field and tennis for ASICS, and I was at Nationals in Eugene, and we were right behind the Pancake House. I forget the name of the hotel, but anyways, he had his display, and one of the shoes on display was an ASICS Noosa. And I said, Matt, why don't you make the tennis shoe in the Noosa colors? Because at the time you could only get white tennis shoes.
Right. And the Noosa is the craziest
crazy
colorway on the
right.
market.
And he says, well, no one will buy it. And I said, I think people will buy it. And he says, I need somebody to buy like 2,000 pairs, 3,000 pairs. So I talked to my partners, and they got an exclusive on the shoe, and it blew up. Right. Because it was so far out of left field for the tennis market. And it was really kind of odd in a sense, because it was 10-to-1 sales on the women's side.
Wow.
So women were buying it in much greater numbers than men. Yeah. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going with that.
I mean, we even saw when the Noosa, on the running side of things, some people were buying it for running, but I would say the majority were buying it because of the look. Going back to, it's something unique, it's different. It wasn't the best shoe, but you were seen in that shoe.
Right. And the other thing, too, is to put ASICS on the map for tennis shoes. Yes. And now they're the top. They have the top 2 models in the industry, right? Yeah. The other cool thing about ASICS is I've tried on the tennis shoes, and they fit like the running shoes, and the golf shoes fit like the tennis shoes and the running shoes. You would think that'd be the case with all brands, but that's not the case with brands. They all fit differently. Yeah. But ASICS does a good job of making sure the fit is consistent. Right. So if you like ASICS running shoes and you get their golf shoes, like I got a pair of their golf shoes, and I didn't wear them for the longest time because everyone said golf shoes are uncomfortable. But it turns out they're really comfortable. Yeah. I just wear them around all the time, which isn't a smart thing, because you slip on the floor in the grocery store and stuff like that. So from the internet, are you ready to move on to this?
I'm ready.
Okay. From the world famous Let's Run message board comes this. From Need New Shoes, he asked, or she asked, when do shoe companies put their previous models on sale? Ooh. Now, you would think this would be an easy question to answer, and it isn't. It should be cut and dried. So there was a time when brands came out with a new model every year, and I don't know if people in listener land know this, but there's price protection. So it's called a minimum advertised price. So a brand can't tell you what to charge the customer for the brand, but they can decide not to ship your product. So that's what happens in the industry. That's why you see the same price for all different models across at every manufacturer. And for those in listener land, if you see a model that's $160 everywhere except for something that shows up on your phone for $50, you should probably not give those people your credit card.
No.
Something is fishy there.
No.
So in the past, it was new models every year, and then 1 to 2 months beforehand, they would allow you to discount the shoe like 10 or 15 or 25%, with the idea being that we're going to get rid of the current model and then replace it with the new model. And so you would get this markdown cadence. It might be 25% off at 30 days out. It might be 40% off at 15 days out. And then when the new model shows up, all bets are off, and you can charge whatever you want for it to get rid of it. Right? So that's how it worked. But what has happened in recent past is brands have lengthened the life cycle.
Yes.
So what happens there, that helps like a brick and mortar maintain their inventory levels,
Yep.
which is fine. But now you're seeing shoe companies do 18 and 24 months.
Right.
And we see sales drop off significantly after 18 months because people want new product.
Right.
We'd like to see things 6 months or 12 months, but that's not always the case. Then you have a case of like the Hoka Bondi, which isn't going to be updated until spring of 25. So that'll be a 3-year-old model. So you won't find Bondi 8s on sale for 3 years.
Yeah.
ASICS, on the other hand, introduced the Nimbus 25 in early 23.
Yep.
And came out with the 26 in early 24.
Which was all new. It wasn't just an upper update.
No, it was all brand new. And the advantage for ASICs is that 25 goes on sale at 25% off. And so you have a choice of buying a $180 Bondi or getting a 25% off on a Nimbus. And you go, well, I'll try the Nimbus. And so ASICs, I don't know if this is the case, but they're going to have their models on sale more often, which gives them an opportunity to get market share.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you have the other thing, like right now, the Adrenaline 22 is replaced by the Adrenaline 23, and they're both at the same price.
Yeah.
Now, who in the hell is going to buy the 22 at the same price as the 23?
Right. And yeah, I mean, it's a tough position. I think we've talked about these longer life cycles, and not only does it maybe curb a little bit of the innovation because it's longer time between models, but also you don't get to hear that constant feedback. And say from one version to the next year, maybe people didn't like something, they can make changes, but now it's going 2 years between. So if you've got a shoe maybe you don't like, it goes 2 years, and the next one, maybe they still don't make a change. It's going to be another 2 years. So you don't get those micro adjustments.
So it usually takes about 2 years for any change to be implemented.
Right.
And so the thing is that if you have a version 1, you won't see any significant improvements until version 3.
Right.
But you know that there's something wrong with version 1, and by the time 3 comes out, you'd be good to go.
Yeah.
Right. And hopefully you made some adjustments to version 2 that make an improvement on the shoe.
So do you think moving forward, we're going to see the trend? It to me, it seems like a lot of brands are moving to those longer life cycles, but do you think there are going to be some brands like ASICS and maybe some others that are going to, strategically do a shorter life cycle?
It doesn't even need to be a significant upgrade. I mean, kudos to ASICS for, redoing the tooling.
Yeah.
And tooling is like the midsole and the outsole and the upper. But what tends to be fairly effective is the same tooling, so same midsole and outsole in a different upper.
Yeah.
And do that annually. So you do a complete retooling change every other year, and change the upper every year. Yeah. And that seems to work pretty well.
Get that freshness.
Yeah, new colors, new upper design, and so forth. And people seem to respond pretty well to that.
Yeah. So
here's the second thing from Let's Run. And this is from Struggling Runner. And this is actually a pretty good question.
Okay.
The subject matter is, are my coach's workouts too hard?
Ooh.
So here's what Struggling Runner has to say. I run the 800 and 1600 in high school, and below is the workout my coach gave me for today. I'm currently preparing for outdoor track. We don't run indoors. And I typically have 3 workouts a week, 2 that are more speed-oriented and 1 that is more distance-oriented. Recently, I haven't been able to finish my coach's workouts, and I'm wondering, is it my fault? I feel like I'm putting a high level of effort into these, but I never seem to be able to complete anything my coach has planned. I don't know if his workouts are too hard or if I'm just not trying hard enough. Need some opinions. Thanks. Example, today's workout. 2 sets of 4x400 at mile pace and 4x200 at 800 pace. So for those that don't know how sets work, the first set is 4x400 at mile pace. So that's a mile worth of stuff at mile race pace, and 4x200 at 800 race pace. So 800 meters worth of stuff at 800 meter race pace. 2 sets of that. So the coach is asking for 2 miles worth of stuff at mile race pace, in addition to 1 mile of stuff at 800 meter race pace.
That's red flag immediately.
So just as a point of reference, for my guys, these are 26-year-old post-collegiate national class distance runners. The most I will give them at any speed between 800, 1600, and 3200 is twice the race distance volume. So if they're running stuff at mile race pace, the most I'll give them is 2 miles. That's 100% of a workout. Yeah. If it's 800 meter race pace stuff, the most I'll give them is 1 mile worth of stuff. So in this case, the coach is asking this kid to do 200% of what I'm asking my national class post-collegiate runners to do. So there's a reason this kid can't do the workout, because it's impossible.
And if you do complete that workout, you're going to have nothing left for race day.
No. And so it's way too much. So you either have to slow down significantly, or you need to cut back on the volume of work. So just off the top of my head, the volumes that we do tend to be, if you're doing stuff at 400 meter race pace, it's 800 meters total volume. 800 is 1,600 meters worth of work. Mile pace is 2 miles worth of work. 3K or 2 mile and 5K is 4 miles worth of work. And then you start getting diminishing returns. Like having somebody do 6 miles worth of stuff at 5K race pace, you have to be a horse to be able to do that. And then 10K, it's more like 1-to-1. So 6 miles worth of stuff. Then a half marathon race pace, it might be 10 miles, 8 to 10 miles. Mm-hmm. So it's like 75%. And then marathon race pace, it might be 13 to 16 miles. So, you just have to adjust it like that. So the other thing that when I have those volumes in my head, if somebody says like this weekend that they want to do some tempo work mm-hmm. and they're at 8 miles worth of tempo and they want to do a 4 mile tempo, that's 50% of a workout. Yeah. And they want to do some quarters afterwards at say 5K race pace. Well, if they're doing 4 miles worth of stuff, then we can do 2 miles worth of stuff at 5K pace, quarters. And that's exactly what Silas did last week. Yeah. Right. He said, we want to do some quarters, and he wanted to do 2 or 3. I said, why don't you do 8? Yeah. I told him the rationale behind it. But having those volumes in mind helps a lot. But
and I think every athlete has gone down this in some capacity in their career. Yeah. Not being able to finish a workout, maybe doing a little too much, going a little too hard. And it can be hard on the body physically, but mentally, oh my gosh, when you start not finishing workouts.
It's horrible. That's the one thing as a coach you do not want to do is give people workouts they cannot finish. Yeah. It just messes with their head.
The race day is going to be a struggle. Their next workout's going to be a struggle. It's hard to come back.
Yeah, and then you start doubting yourself, and you're fried.
Yeah.
You start getting really tired.
So, I mean, it's almost better to err on, maybe doing just a little bit less than you think, and then until you've kind of dialed in where you're at.
And that was always the Bowerman, one of the founders of Nike. He was a head coach at the University of Oregon, and he always wanted his athletes to be able to do one more, whatever they're doing. Right. If it was mile reps, you can do one more, but we're not going to have you do that one more.
Right.
That sort of thing. So, on a future episode, we'll talk about recovery times because that plays into it too. So the pace you're running, the volume of work you're doing, and the recovery times.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is a lot to go on that. And the one that I remember was switching from college to running with the Aggies and how much difference a 400-meter workout can be when you get your, your maybe just 1 minute jog versus what you're famous for is more of that up-tempo rest where
like a threshold type of thing.
Yes, when you think you're getting a good rest, but man, they add up really quickly, and then by the time you get back on the on 400, you're like, did I even recover?
No, and the other thing too is it's really odd, but the slow one is the harder one.
Yes, right.
It's really odd, and the fast ones kind of take care of themselves.
Right.
You don't do that workout that often, but you can do it as mile reps too, like 4 by mile, a 10K pace with a 80, 90 second quarter in between. Mm-hmm. That thing's not that fun.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and the last question for the day is Facebook has a thing called Cross Country Network, which is a bunch of cross-country coaches around the world asking each other questions. And this one's from Andy Christie. He asks, or could be a woman too, anyone know of a stopwatch that lets you see the total running time, but also the time of the split you're taking? I've only had stopwatches that show the split time once you end the split. I'd like a actual stopwatch that can do this, not a phone or an app. Well, there's 2 things that I carry with me all the time that do both things. One is this $20, seriously, $20 Timex Ironman.
I mean, I like those more than, your
Garmin,
fancy. Yeah.
Because you get the split. It gives you overall time. Yeah. It's easy.
Right.
There's that. And also, I know you mentioned, Andy, that you didn't want a phone, but your iPhone has that stopwatch function. And I like the iPhone because it shows a running time. Yeah. When you do the Timex, it just gives you 2 numbers. And so sometimes you forget which one's which. Right. But it'll do overall and splits. So we have Kevin's Closet.
Right.
Next.
Right. Everyone's waiting to see what new shoe does Kevin have, and really new shoe, old shoe.
Exactly. And for today,
oh man,
we have the Tiger Jayhawk from 1973.
This is a classic.
It is. It is. That was, I believe, the lightest racing flat at the time at 8.3 ounces. So that was the lightest shoe that you could buy in 1973.
And there's
nothing there.
There's no midsole here. I mean, we got a few millimeters in the heel. What did it feel like running in this shoe?
It was brutal. There was that, and I mean, that was the most popular racing shoe on the market. That's when Nike was just coming on board. You had the Obori and
right. And obviously, when you look at this, you think it's an ASICS shoe, but technically at the time it was Onitsuka Tiger.
Yeah, Onitsuka Tiger.
And a lot of people don't know, but Nike in the early days was actually
a distributor
distributing these shoes until I think around early 70s when they started making their own shoes. But this was the brand at the time.
And so what Phil Knight did, this was in Beaverton, I believe, is where he was born and raised. He had his sisters taking the logos off ASICS shoes and replacing them with Nike logos. And that's when they started the Blue Ribbon Sports. And then a friend of mine who recently passed away, he was the head coach at Fresno State. He lived next door to Phil Knight.
Really?
Red Estes. So he was head coach cross-country coach at Fresno State.
Yep.
And, you sit down and you talk to him, and he said, I was just too stupid to realize because Phil wanted me to invest in the company. And he says, there's no way in hell that this company is going to do anything with your sisters in the basement taking logos off of ASICS shoes and putting this upside-down Puma logo on there.
Right.
Right.
Seems like a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Well, now it would be.
Yeah. And, I mean, I think when we look at these shoes, again, no real midsole, a nice
gum rubber
outsole. But what always stands out to me of these shoes of the 70s is the upper.
Yeah.
And, you got these like really nice suede overlays. The material is just super soft. I mean, I don't know how this would fare nowadays, but when you look at the craftsmanship, it's just amazing.
I think going back to retro shoes, that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Retro shoe.
A Vaporfly with an upper like this.
And the problem you run into is now when people think back and they go, I really wish I could get that shoe, and you find one, like at a Zappos or something like that, it actually doesn't have like a running midsole. It has a cheap midsole, cheap materials all around. It's just meant to look, it's a knockoff.
These retros that are coming back, I know ASICS had a few, they're not going to be identical to when it was originally released.
No, and there's a couple people in the building wearing the New Balance with a giant N on it.
Yes.
It actually showed up on my Instagram feed from Rabbit, of all things.
Wow.
Yeah. So we fast forward to 2007. So that's 73.
Okay.
2007 is how many years is that? I don't know. It's
quite a few.
24? No.
Yeah.
34. 34 years.
Yeah.
Same weight. This is a shoe. Geber Selassie ran his 203.59. I know that because he signed it here. He signed it, and it says H. Haley. Yeah.
Yeah.
Geber Selassie shoe. So this is 8.3 ounces.
Yes.
So yes, it has more stack.
Yep.
Has more protection.
Yep.
But still 8.3 ounces.
Right. Which, again, another big step forward, and we started to see times go down. Definitely some innovation here. But, again, every year we continue to see innovation, and it really wasn't until maybe around 2013, 2014 with Boost.
Yeah.
And then Vaporfly in 2016.
Yeah, Boost was still heavy, though.
But Boost was heavy.
Yeah. And then 2016, you started getting weights down. And now we have the replacement for this, the Evo 1.
Yeah.
That's under 5 ounces.
Right.
With a huge stack on it.
Right.
So that's the progression on the weights.
Right.
And the protection.
Yeah.
And the foams and so forth on racing shoes.
When we look at this shoe, then we look at some of the Boost shoes that set records. Adidas really, for a long time, has been on the forefront of that racing marathon technology. Mm-hmm. And Nike kind of snuck in 2016. But you're right. I didn't think Adidas maybe was going to be able to respond. And then when we saw the Evo, it shows Adidas is committed and they're back trying to create the fastest, best marathon
always,
shoe.
The Adizero line's always been fantastic.
Yes.
Just in terms of selection and really filling a lot of different slots.
Yeah.
And similar thing has gone on with spikes. I mean, spikes in what? They were about, in the 70s, they were about 6.5 ounces.
Okay.
Okay. And then this one right here is 5.5 ounces, Adidas again, and it's signed by Mo Farah because when he first arrived on the scene in 2005 or 2004, he was running for Adidas.
Right. Pre-Oregon Project.
Pre-Sir Mo Farah.
Pre-Sir.
That sort of thing. And now, I mean, spikes, if it's not under 4.5 ounces, it's not really relevant.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've seen, the victory that came out in 08, which was, I want to say it was in the high 3 ounce range, but a lot of those top in class spikes from 2008 to 2016 were light, but there was nothing to them. So you wore these spikes, you were trashed for a week or two.
Yeah, you were beat up.
Now with the super foams, we're seeing basically the same weight in that low 4 ounce range, but so much more foam. Really, the only thing limiting foam right now is the restrictions that World Athletics is putting on spikes. But that's only for the pros. So it will be interesting to see, will we see higher cushion spikes for the masses, for the high school, for the college athletes? Because
there's
no restrictions.
There's no restrictions.
I'm waiting for a brand to do the crazy illegal spike that'll set an NCAA record because they can wear whatever they want for now.
Yeah, exactly. And the same thing with high school.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, but you look at how many kids are running super fast.
Yes.
Like high school and college kids.
I mean, Northern Arizona, this.
Yeah, all you people bagging on Mike Smith, okay, eat it, man. Nico ran 12:57, and everyone's going, well, Mike Smith's screwing up Nico. Yeah, I don't think he is. It doesn't appear to be. Right?
And we saw 3:53.
3:53, yeah, from Solomon.
Yes.
I mean, but the stuff is crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy good. But
and they're going to be a factor come trials day. I think a lot of the pros were maybe just thinking, I just need to look at my fellow sponsored athletes. But now the college kids are going to be a factor.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that kind of has me leaning towards Rupp because he's coached by Mike Smith.
Yes.
I actually had it in the back of my mind that Salazar served a suspension. I really thought he was going to be coaching Rupp at this trials.
And hard to know, maybe behind the scenes there are some. We don't know.
Exactly.
No one knows.
I'm thinking if there's any athlete that Salazar would be coaching, it'd be Rupp.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been working together since he was in high school.
Right.
Right. So, anyways, well, that's a wrap for this episode.
Yeah.
What are people supposed to do?
Like, subscribe, comment down below.
Yeah. Ask us questions.
We're still waiting for, we've gotten some questions, but I want something that's really going to test us.
Exactly. And then I should have some stories back from the trials and also Melrose.
Right.
And we'll come up with some more engaging content in our next episode, which would be number 11, correct?
Number 11.
All right.
More big things to come.
Everyone have a good run out there. Thanks a lot. Okay, peace out.